What's up, guys? Today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite games of all time, and that is ASL Season 10 Round of 16 Snow vs. Free elimination game on Optimizer. The reason why I wanted to talk about this game, or rather this engagement in particular, is because I think it perfectly details what I call to be the lost art of real-time strategy. What do I mean by that? Oftentimes in RTS game discussions, people tend to talk about strategy as being disjoint from the real-time component, right? So for example, they are typically things that are visually explicit, right? Like, oh, build orders. This person's going for an economic build order to get more and more units and hit a timing later. This person is going for an aggressive opener with high-tech units doing this cheese or that cheese or using this tactic or that tactic, right? Other times it could be things like unit counters or unit compositions or the mix of the army so as to fight against your opponents, right? And while these things are all compelling and valid strategies, I don't think those are the things that actually makes these games great. I think oftentimes when we watch a game like Brood War or other famous RTS games, a lot of times the strategy kind of is underneath. It's a little bit more invisible, and when you watch it, you can't quite put your finger on what it is, but you know that it's incredible. So that's exactly what I want to break down here today. I want us to approach this game, and specifically in this state, as though it's like the middle of a chess game, right? A chessboard. And we have to break down the set of actions that each player has to take in order to win the game or the engagements or the chess match, right? And if you view StarCraft as a sequence of, chess games as it pertains to interactions, then you might start viewing the strategy component a little bit more differently, okay? All right, so let's get into this. I'm not going to go into the full game, but basically the context is Snow was basically in a unwinnable situation, right? Probably a 95-5 dog. And what we have is he's, in the bottom left here, he's got Dragoons, he's got Zealots, he's in an arc in a defensive stance. Free, on the other hand, is up over 30 supply. He has the same set of units, except he also has 4 Archons in the mix, which is a very, very common timing in mid-game PvP. And Snow's just kind of hanging on for his life. So let's just break down each interaction one by one. So the first interaction that we have here is, it's very common for pro players to just kind of like have this dance between Reavers and Shuttles, right? The Shuttle tends to, allow the Reavers to micro backwards. And if Free were to just 1A, 2A, 3A donk into Snow, then what happens is you give Snow's Reavers 2 free shots before the battle actually occurs, right? So for Snow to actually, set up like this, and for Free to be patient with his army and also do this little Reaver shuttle dance before engaging, you basically neutralize that Reaver advantage in the beginning of the fight, okay? So let's move on. The first thing that we see is obviously Snow's Reavers firing. We also have Free's Reavers also firing over here. But notice what these first 4 Dragoons are doing in this fight. They appear to be target firing the shuttle, right? Did you catch that? He immediately sends only a small fleet of units to target fire the shuttle. Why? Because the shuttle are the legs of the Reaver, and the Reavers are the most important unit in the game, right? The Reavers are the scaling units, right? They can deal scaling damage. They could deal a lot more damage than what they cost to build, right? Things like Dragoons and Zealots scale linearly, right? So they oftentimes, no matter how well you micro them, they usually won't deal more damage than what they're worth, or not a whole lot more, right? So therefore, it makes the most sense to allocate the vast majority of your attention on the shuttle and the Reaver, and conversely, taking out your opponent's shuttle and Reaver when it comes to these engagements, right? So he immediately snipes the shuttle, And then he immediately takes his own shuttle and starts microing it back. And notice carefully also that Free is trying to target fire the shuttle and eventually takes it down, right? And so both players have correctly identified the most important set of actions to open the fight, right? They both understand the objective, but one player did it better than the other, right? Another thing that I want to point out here that maybe I think is a little bit more hidden is you should ask yourself, why isn't Snow 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A his entire army forward while he micros his Reavers, right? Let's watch it. Notice how, despite this hectic attack, his army waits before actually going into attack. Why is that? Well, let's think about it strategically. If I send all of my units forward, and my opponent has Reavers, they have Archons, what happens is you actually give them more DPS per second because of how splash damage works, right? We've already established Reavers are the most important unit, and that's the only way Snow is going to come out ahead is that if he trades well with his Reavers. Therefore, the rest of Snow's army becomes cannon fodder. It just becomes a defense. It just becomes a longer life for the Reaver to operate so that he can actually gain the value that he needs, right? So keep in mind that this is an explicit strategic decision from Snow. It's not he's just clicking faster. He's not just mechanically more gifted, even though obviously, micro is really, really good. But he's strategically thinking about this as a chess game. Do I move my army forward? Do I keep it back? What should I allocate my attention to? How do I win this fight, right? So notice that exactly occurs. Once Free's shuttle is out of the picture, the Reavers are not as effective as Snow's. Look at how Snow's Reavers are constantly target firing. At each step and each point in time, he's looking for the biggest clumps to deal the most damage, right? He takes that off. He sees that there's a clump of Dragoons, so he picks that off. He moves backwards, and then what? He probably fires that clump of, I guess he takes out the Archon, right? High value unit. Then he takes out the Zealot. Then he takes out the Goon that's firing him. Snow then cleans up the Reavers, right? Boom. He just erased a 30 supply deficit. Well, I guess not technically because they're, still macroing back at home. They also have deficits in terms of probe counts and stuff like that. But he won a fight that should not have been won because he was strategically maneuvering the situation much better than Free, right? Let's also kind of go back and talk about this engagement a little bit more, right? Notice what Free is doing with his Reavers, right? He got his shuttle sniped. One player is target firing with the Reavers. The other player seems to be on A command, right? I don't even know if they're actually target firing the same thing. See, they're splitting their attacks. They're kind of moving forward. That one gets a little bit stuck over there. I'm not exactly sure what he's doing, right? Now, bear in mind, StarCraft is a game of scarcity of attention, right? And with scarcity of attention, maybe Free is back at home macroing. Maybe he's making cannons. Maybe he's sending his workers to mine, or maybe he's microing his Dragoons or something else, right? But really, what makes Snow great at the game is not just his micro, but the strategy around his allocation of attention. He understands what is the most important set of interactions and engagements he needs to take in order to win the fight, right? And if you just kind of approach Brood War or RTS games as like, oh, look, I'm just going to 1A, 2A, 3A, cross my fingers and just hope that I just win, and if it doesn't, then I'll just start over the next game over and over and over, you really, really, really miss the strategy that is underlying the combat. And this is exactly why I feel like this is the lost art of real-time strategy. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you guys think, and hope you guys have a good day. Peace.